In this video, I'm going to show you how I apply a wrapped and glued binding to my fabric collage quilt. I have my quilt. It's quilted, it's cut to size, and now it's ready for my binding, which is going to be made up of a bunch of scraps. I have my pile of scraps right here, scrap fabrics, and I have a pre-selected pile here of colors and patterns that I think would go nicely with my quilt. Because what I plan on doing is making a multicolored binding using these scraps. Now I've already started with 3 pieces in place. I've selected them because I like the way they look with a piece. Picks up the pink, picks up the aquas, and I've glued them to the top and then wrapped them around to the back. Here you can definitely see those different pieces, and they're just glued down. I don't even trim them much once I get them to the back. But on the front, they start blending really nicely. Now I've got a couple pieces chosen to show you how I do this. This piece right here has been cut from a larger one, but it already had this irregular edge to it, and that's what I'm looking for. I want something that'll be kind of irregular and will blend in with my piece. So that looks good to me. I'm gonna kind of plan on placing it there. I get a piece of scrap fabric and I flip this to the back side, and then I take my glue and put some glue on this leading edge. And I want it to be enough so that it coats the edge, but I don't want it to be goopy. So that's a very technical term. And so now I'm gonna smear it so it doesn't spread onto the top of my quilt, because this is glued right onto my quilt face that has been quilted. So I'm going to place it right back where I decided it would look good, and I'm going to press it down because I want to make sure it goes through, adheres well to the fabric underneath, and in this case it's going through a layer of tulle as well. I'm going to trim this off right here because there's really not enough to wrap around at this point. So that's good. Now I'm going to flip this to the back, and again I'm going to put this fabric underneath, and then I'm going to put a little more glue right here, and I'm going to put a little glue right on this very back edge of my quilt, and again kind of smearing these things a little bit too, and then wrap it around. Now I want to give enough pressure so that it's nice and smooth, but not too much pressure so it's like, a dip in it or anything. So I just kind of double check it. I take this away and make sure it looks nice, against my board. That's nice and straight. That looks good. Flip it back to the front. That looks good. And now one more length, about 3 inches there, is done on my binding. Now when you come to a corner like this right here, I kind of have fun finding some fabric scraps that go that are kind of interesting, kind of have a curve to them already. See how that piece has a curve to it? And it's kind of fun using something like that instead of just, overlapping a corner. So if I laid this like that, and this is just a scrap I found in that pile, I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Now I can see if I just block it off like that, I can see how it's going to look, and I can move it a little bit this way. I think that's too much. So that looks good. Now this has got a lot of extra fabric there. So in this case, I am going to trim just a little bit off here. And I'm going to trim a little bit off there because I really don't need to have all that hanging off. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that, flip it around on my scrap, and put the glue on. And it's got little triangular cuts in it in this one, so that's good, but way too much glue until I smear it down. So let's get that smeared away. All right, and then I'm going to place it back where I had planned on putting it before. So that looks good. That covers all my edges. Let's move that in a little bit. I can feel where that edge is, and that feels good. All right, and then I press it down press it through that tool in this case, flip it over, and now here I've got my corner. So what I do is I pick one side, and I'll just pick this side right here. And I'll wrap this side first. So I'm gonna put glue right there on the back edge of the quilt. I'm gonna put glue on the back of the piece I wanna flip around. And I'm gonna put glue right around here where that fold would be. So I'm gonna go like this, and again, put a little pressure on to make sure that it's nice and smooth, not too much. And here's a little trick. What I do is I pull, instead of just letting it fold straight, I pull this so it's just a little bit of an angle, and I then press it in place. So when I turn it this way, this edge, that corner right there, is going in to the quilt and doesn't poke out of the quilt. So it looks a lot neater. And then I can lay it back down this way, put some glue right on the back again of the quilt. Again, here in the little fold that's going to happen. Put glue right there, put glue on this edge, smear it a little, and then flip it back over and make sure again that corner, that folded edge at the corner looks pretty. And then just kind of smooth it down. I'm going to flip it around so I can see if that it looks good. And there you go. One more piece that's completing my binding. So now I have the rest of my fabric scraps. I have, more to pull from. I've got these I can pull from too, and I'll just keep going until my entire quilt is finished off with the wrapped and glued binding.